Good Erev Shabbos. We begin anew this Shabbos morning. We begin the Torah anew. We've rolled it all the way back to the beginning of Genesis, where it all starts. And we also are new people. We're renewed. It's a new year. And having grown and changed and felt the impact of each day of the last 2 months, not to mention the whole past year, from the shofar sounding of Elul to the shofar in the park on Rosh Hashanah, to Kol Nidre, to the joy of Sukkot and the rejoicing of Simchas Torah, and completing the entire Torah. Now we're people who have all that experience of the high holidays of 5,781 as part of who we are. No one in history ever experienced this before. How can we not be optimistic and happy and look positively ahead? Torah comes from the word hora'ah, teaching, and everything we hear in Torah has something to teach it if we're willing to listen and to absorb. And Parshat Bereishis, the first portion in the entire Torah, tells us a lot of things we need to know. Let's look at just one. First verse, second word. The first word you know already, Bereishis, with a big bays. When we lift up the Torah this week, make sure you look for it. Second word, bara, created. Third word is Elokim, a name for God. Rashi says, bara Elokim is what it says in the Torah there, not bara Hashem, using the Shem, God's name Adonai, the formation that we use frequently. Why is this, asks Rashi. He says, because Elokim refers to justice, strict justice, measured out according to the book. And the name Hashem, Adoshem, refers to kindness and mercy. Now, God is God, and God is one. Don't take my word for it. You just said it this morning. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We all said God is one. There aren't parts, there aren't departments, there aren't different jurisdictions. God is God. Sometimes God appears to us to function with the midah or aspect of severity, judgment, this strict application of the law. Why that is another conversation, but sometimes God's work strikes us that way. Other times we experience God with the midah or aspect of Rahmanas, the source of kindness, setting aside judgment for mercy. Rashi says that at first God considered creating the world through midas hadin, the attribute of strict judgment, the letter of the law, everything by the book. No room for error, no wiggle room, no forgiveness, no mercy. God saw, because God sees, that the world wouldn't last that way very long. That's Rashi's exact words. Ra'a she'en ha'olam miskayim. The world could not endure if judgment, if severity, unbending truth were the only operative principle. So Rashi explains, hikdim midas harachamim. God preceded that idea of severity and judgment with rachamim, which is why in chapter 2, and a couple of verses later, it will explain this notion with the phrase, B'yom asos Hashem Elokim Eretz V'Shamayim. On the day of Hashem Elokim, God gods, but God mercy and God justice, making earth and heavens. There you see that the name of God, Hashem, the four-letter name, the tetragrammaton, denotes Rahmanas. That precedes the name of God, Elokim, which denotes strictness. They both have to be present for the world to exist as it is. Curiously enough, that tension is an essential tension. But why do truth and kindness have to be opposed? Let's listen into the Midrash for some insight. Midrash Rabbah on this parasha says in the name of Rabbi Simon, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to create Adam, the Malachei Asharis, the angels, took sides with the issue. Remember that many people have been puzzled by the Torah's expression, let us create man in our image. Not so puzzling. Rashi says you simply see God's evidence of God's great humility, asking the angels what they think. Usually committees slow down the process, but you'll see you'll see what you think when you hear what the angels were discussing. These malachim took sides. Some said, yes, let humans be created. Others said, no, humans should not be created. The Midrash doesn't say this, but I'm putting in my 2 cents. At some point, God must have said, Chevra, I didn't ask you whether or not to create people. I asked you how. What were the malachim so upset about? They knew Tehillim. That's probably what they sing all day long, even though King David had not yet committed Tehillim to writing yet. It existed in their realms already. The whole Torah preceded creation itself. So they quoted to God, they read him out from chapter 85 of Psalms, where it says, love and truth fought together. Righteousness and peace combated one another. Chesed ve'emes nivgoshu, tzedek u'shalom noshoku. Midrash continues, love said, let humans be created because they're going to they're going to engage in acts of chesed, loving kindness. Truth countered that and said, let humans not be created because they're made up of falsehoods. That's what they are. Tzedek spoke up and said, people will do righteous things. Let them be created. Peace said, no way. All they're going to do is fight with each other. They shouldn't even be allowed to exist. Now, who was right? You decide who had the stronger point. But the Midrash recounts what happened next. Are you sitting down? God took truth and cast it to the ground. Cast truth to the ground. Emes is God's signature, God's seal. Torah's emes. The Malachim couldn't believe it either. Let truth arise, one of the bolder angels said. Or maybe he was just reading from the next verse of Tehillim, because the very next verse in that chapter 85 reads, Emes me'eretz titzmach. Truth will spring up from the earth. Let it come up. Well, what is this all about? Let's say it's about balance. Truth, kindness, mercy, judgment, love, all of these are important. And the very notion of balance is maybe the most important. The most famous machlokas we have, argument that we have throughout the oral Torah is Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, students of Hillel versus the students of Shammai. They argue all the time, and they both have good points. Both have very good points. In another Gemara, famous Gemara, it says that they both actually are godly. Their opinions are holy. In Tractate Ksubis, the question comes up, Ketzad maraktim lifnei akala. Everybody knows it's a mitzvah to dance before the bride and groom, rejoice with the bride and groom. Nobody disputes that. The question is ketzad. How are you supposed to? What should you say? What should your attitude be? Beis Hillel says, Kala na v'chsuda. Beis Hillel says, when you dance at a wedding, say the bride is beautiful. Beis Shammai says, no. You can't say that about every bride. It's not always true. Say, Kala kamay shehi. The Kala, she is what she is. You have to tell the truth. So which one is it? The tension here is between being nice and being true, maybe. Sometimes you can finesse, sometimes you can't. You're not allowed to lie. No question about that. Turns out in this case, Beis Hillel is correct because he's saying every bride is attractive to her groom. You're just seeing it from his perspective, so you're echoing that. We are in fact not allowed to lie. Midvar sheker tirchak, says the Torah. Distance yourself from falsehood. Don't even stand around. Don't even be in the neighborhood when there's a falsehood. This is a positive mitzvah, not a negative mitzvah. Don't lie. This is a positive mitzvah. You have to do something. Run away from falsehood. So what about all those other midos? Rachmanas, loving kindness, chesed, and all that? It's instructive, on one hand, that God tossed emes to the ground, tossed truth down, took it out of the equation. Why? Because truth is an absolute. If God would have taken shalom, peace, out of the picture, okay, we won't worry so much about peace. It wouldn't have changed anything. You would still have conflict among tzedek, din, judgment. The others have to balance, and then we balance everything with truth. We always have to remain true. What's happening in our strange little corner of history is a notion of alternative facts, alternative truth. Speak your truth, they say, as if there's a billion individual truths running around. There are a billion perspectives, but there's not a billion truths. If you've been listening to politics in America lately, which I don't recommend if you'd like to retain your sanity, you hear the Republicans endlessly quoting a great Democrat. Not sure they know they're doing it. Daniel Patrick Moynihan was a senator from New York who was also a professor, and he was said to have written more books than most of the other senators had read. He said once, and now everybody's quoting it, sometimes a couple times in the same evening, you're entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Problem is, in our wonderful information age, we have so many facts out there on the internet, you really can pick and choose the ones that you want, the ones that you like, and disregard the ones you don't. Many people these days, it seems, tend to live in a little bubble or echo chambers where they only let in what they want to hear. Ashreinu ma tov chelkenu, we are happy, and how fortunate is our portion as Jews. That can't happen with us. We come back to this same Parshas Bereishis every year, the first Shabbos after Simchas Torah. Remember, for a couple years running, not so long ago, Yom Tovim were on Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday. So you finished Simchas Torah. We finished lunch here about 2:30 on Friday afternoon. And 6 o'clock that night, we lit candles for Shabbos Bereishis. One day rolled right into the next. No break, no vacation. This year, we had a little bit longer time. What did we have? Finished on Sunday. We had 6 days. Israel had Simchas Torah on last Shabbos, so they had a full week until Shabbos Bereishis, until the Shabbat, where Bereshit is the portion of the week. However long we had or didn't have, we're right back to the beginning, back to Bereishis. Adam and Eve, totally ignoring the apple terms and conditions. I still like that one. The serpent, whatever that may stand for. Cain and Abel. Was it two brothers arguing? Was it competition? Was it a genocide? 1/4 of the earth's population was wiped out, remember. Next week, Noah. What do you do when the world around you is corrupt? Is it enough to save yourself, or do you have a greater responsibility to others? We're going to ask that question. The way we approach these questions are as many as there are Jews. What do the words of tefillah, of prayer, mean? Well, they mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. The exact same prayers have meant different things to the same person as you experience different things in your life. Our perspective changes a little, and the way you read the words changes also. And then just when you think you have it all down and you know what's going on, along comes pandemic and lockdown, and people can't go to shul like they like to. They can't be with their friends like they like to. So what happens as a result? People are reading the Parsha on their own, with their own eyes, not just following along when someone else reads, but actually engaging with the text on their own. People are saying the prayers on their own, at their own pace, without some annoying rabbi telling you, now turn to this page, now turn to that page, read in the gray box, read below the line. People had the great luxury of peace and quiet to be able to focus this year on the prayers of the high holidays and of the regular davening too, and see how it penetrated their consciousness. Not better or worse, but a different experience than when you're sitting in shul with your friends. The point is, we do have disagreements among Jews. I don't know if you noticed. Hope that doesn't spoil it for anyone. But we have the same Parsha to discuss. We have the same characters. We have the same story. We have the same Mishnah, the same Gemara to learn, the same tefillahs to say, the same prayers. You know, some people change the words of the Siddur because they're bothered by something it says that it doesn't resonate with their values, so they change it. Are you kidding me? The whole point of davening is that hopefully, somehow, at some point, as you daven along, something will bother you. Something will ring in your head and say, oh my goodness, I just said, blessed are you, God, who feeds everyone. I know some people who don't have enough to eat. Blessed are you, God, who loves righteousness and justice. Wait a second. Is everyone being treated justly and with righteousness in our society? Blessed are you, God, who grants wisdom. I could think of a few people who should reapply for the grant. The whole point here is that we come back to these texts over and over again. We should learn, we should listen, we should say the words and allow them, be open and be ready and look forward to them nagging at us a little bit. Let us try to explain them and figure out how they jive with the world around us. How do we make sense of them? How do they guide our world? Or if there's a conflict, how do we navigate that conflict? We have different understandings and different perspectives and even different agendas, but we have so much common ground. We can always bring each other back to being centered on, wait, what was the question in the original in the first place? What does the text say? What is Rashi asking? What is the Midrash arguing for? How does it fit together? Does it make sense to us? Do we not get it yet? We agree on the facts. We just have to sort out what they mean for us and what they offer us and what they ask or maybe even demand of us. So again, Ashrenu, how happy are we that we can't just exist in a little bubble, a little echo chamber where we only hear what we want to hear, because there's so much to engage our imagination, so much to engage our souls, our hearts, our intellects in Torah, so much space to grow and learn and deepen ourselves by listening and understanding, so much to do for each other, so much to do for others. On this Shabbat Bereishit, a Shabbos of beginning, let's all, with God's help, renew ourselves for a new beginning in our commitment and our love and our search for righteousness and truth and kindness. And may that renewal bring new light to the world. Good Shabbos.